out there.
This is going to be a fun one. Jin'taan, how are you doing?
I am doing perfectly well, thank you.
You're the first incumbent I'm interviewing.
I feel honored.
Yeah. Well, it's no surprise because you're everywhere, right? I mean, how many shows are you a part of, even?
I wouldn't say I'm a part of that many shows. I only really run Declarations of War, The War Room, and to a lesser extent, the CSM podcast, which we've started up again.
Only three,
Only three.
and then you're a guest on many more. All right.
I enjoy being on many shows. It's very entertaining.
You're entertaining, and I think that's why you get invited over and over again. Um, it's not just uh, your good looks when you put your glasses on or your youthful coolness.
Yeah, I'm totally radical. I'm down with all those kids.
That's right. In fact, let's get the record straight. Aerith didn't want to show his face on camera, so he used this crazy obscuring device that he put over his head that he could talk through. That belonged to you.
Yes, that's mine. He still owns that, I believe, actually. I let him have it because
You
he kept
did.
poking his damn tongue through it. But no, that's a
Who wants it back after that?
yeah, I don't want any of fucking Areth's germs, you know?
But what's that for? So you don't get busted if you decide to riot?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, should get one of those.
They're pretty good. You can see completely through them. They're really airy. Like they're also really good if you cycle a lot, which I cycle to work because I'm A, environmentally friendly, and B, I can't drive. So, it keeps the cold air from uh what's it called like cracking your lips basically.
Oh, but it might make drivers like look twice and crash while they're like, "What the hell was that?"
No, not like completely over my face, just like
Oh,
over the bottom half like a bandana. Yeah, yeah.
oh, I got you. All right.
Is this the
Well,
actual interview? You just talking about my real life?
yeah, yeah. Basically, I decided when I was going to do this. Wow, the last thing I want to do is spend all my time listening to guys' platforms. That's necessary for some of the newer guys. People know where you stand on a lot of stuff. So I thought the majority of people, it would be interesting to know them as people. And that was what the whole push is, to try to break through and get to know the person, because that's what we're putting up there is we're sending people to CSM to represent us, not players. Nobody's role playing a representation. I mean, they do in the game, right? The CSM are part of the game in the lore and all that. But the reality is we're sending people like you.
I think that's a very good kind of view to take on it as well. Because in all honesty, being, a functional human being is surprisingly useful in the CSM, especially from the stories I've heard of people who were less than so from CCP.
So it helps that you're fully human and mature.
Yeah,
And young
mature
people
in
can be
like
mature.
mindset, not in physical stature, obviously.
Right. So young people can be mature. If you're 18 or 20 and you're running, and if you're mature, it makes no difference. You can still be in the room with adults talking about a video game and that sort of thing without getting,
Yeah,
too
that
crazy.
mature conversation. Sorry, I just need
Yeah.
to plug my laptop in 1 second.
Yeah.
In case you aren't aware, my main computer is dead. And the motherboard completely died in it, unfortunately.
You played Eve on it so much you killed it.
I assume that must be what it caused it.
Yeah.
I have
Well,
no reason to believe not.
the game did become more demanding on systems recently.
Yep. I'm sure that's nothing to do with it.
All right.
It's
Well,
just faulty hardware.
let's get into this. Why should we reelect you?
Uh, the reason why I feel people should re-elect me is because I have experience in the CSM. That's a huge bonus. It means that you're not going to see a large lead up time. That really is a thing in the CSM. But also because I've consistently worked to bring communication to people, and I've consistently worked to kind of improve the platforms that the CSM has to talk to other people. Doing things like roundtables, the weekly summaries, even restarting the CSM podcast. And I do actually have plans to work to, go forwards and do more of that as I've, seen things, seen where things have failed this year and I want to improve on them.
Ooh, where'd they fail?
A big one that I feel we failed on is that I didn't I put in a lot of effort to make myself contactable, but I didn't utilize that to help other people. I wasn't, I didn't create a. I know that there is a contact us page on the in somewhere in the forums on EVE Online forums, but it's not particularly great. It doesn't summarize all the platforms we use, and what's the point? It also doesn't say, this is what this person's involved in, because it's no good if you come to me with something super duper technical about the API, and it's no good if you go to, Steve Renukin about something that's super duper in depth about the mechanics of EVE Online sort of like fleet commanding in EVE Online. He knows a lot about a lot of things. It's just that's not in his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So I think that's something I want to improve on is not just getting out that kind of here's how you can talk to us, but also here's the kind of things that we're specifically experts in, so that we can debate you, on a more even footing.
Debate me.
Fight me.
Fight me.
But yeah,
Do you get
there are some other
hostile?
things.
Do you get hostile if you're on the CSM? Do you get hostile people coming at you, and how do you deal with them?
Do you mean public members or the other CSM?
Public members. We'll
Yeah.
save the inter CSM drama for later. But public coming at you. What's that like?
Um, it's something you need to be able to deal with, tact and I suppose like to
Okay,
a
let's.
degree. I try and kill them with kindness. That's my kind of
Okay.
response. I try and understand where someone's coming from and try and get to the main point of it. Like I've had a lot of people who come at me originally just very, very angry, very upset about something, and just like, why did this happen? I'm so upset. This is not good. That sort of thing, and that's not constructive. But I've been able to look down and dig down with them by just not immediately dismissing them, and starting to work towards the core reasons of why they're doing it and distilling that down. And it's that's been great. Honestly, I've got some of the best points I've been able to bring up from that kind of discussion, where you get someone who's very, very passionate and very, very knowledgeable about something, but you need to be able to, dig into their brains and find out why they're so upset.
Let's get to the real thing, right?
Yeah, because
So,
they're just yeah.
but
Sorry,
let's
go ahead.
admit that some people that come at you are not informed. They're angry because they don't have all the details clearly,
Oh yeah,
and so you don't ever you actually have to deal with those people in a way that you wouldn't if you weren't on CSM.
I suppose yeah. Like I definitely do. I treat them with a lot more tact than I perhaps would if I was not a member of the CSM. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I will, I'll sit there and I will say, I'm just not, we can talk about this like sensible human beings, or I can ignore you. There's like two ways about it.
Yeah.
I've got no problem with someone coming in very hot, but if they don't calm down, I'm not going to sit there and argue with you over something endlessly when you're not able to present a salient point to me, because that doesn't, that's not a good use of my time, and it's probably not a good use of your time either.
But wearing the formality of CSM kind of disciplines you to say, okay, I can't just blow this guy off. I can't just wreck him. So I'll actually have to listen to him a little bit and then say, okay, politely, here's what information you may not have, or we're aware of what you're saying, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean there is a time and a place to just completely go in on someone and just wreck them. But I don't think the CSM is
Like my
by
show,
and
if
large,
Core Blood Brother
yeah, like
shows up.
all the open comms, or like just those are more informal kind of communications, because people aren't just coming to you as a CSM member. They're asking you to talk to them as a personality, and that's kind of a distinct role that you need to take on.
Yeah. Why do you want a second term? Why
Like I said,
didn't you
I feel
finish
like
the first one? Didn't you get all your ideas out?
I don't think the CSM's ever been about ideas though. Like
Mm-hmm.
I did create that video. I know you've probably seen it about how I visualize the CSM and how I see what role I see it taking within the game ecosystem, basically.
Is that the one with
And
the cartoon with money being thrown at Bobman?
no, that's Reloads.
I realize. Okay.
I'll have to link you it to it, but I effectively see the CSM as more of a communication tool and an oversight tool than I do as seeing it as some form of idea injection facility.
Idea injection facility. That sounds very Eve.
Yeah, better bleep that out. It's NDA. It's going to be added to the game soon.
Right.
Um, yeah,
That's that surprise, that super surprise that's coming. The phenomenal phenomena, as you guys
yeah.
called
It's
it.
idea injection facilities. We're actually going to give people an idea of how to play the game. uh,
Yeah. So the second term you want to run because.
Sorry, yeah. Getting back onto that, what I want to do is I want to just continue the work I've done. I think that I can keep up this kind of level of communication, and I want to help to build on, effectively the standards I set in CSM 11. I want to, from a personal perspective, my aim is to set up the expectation that there will be someone like me, that CSM 11 wasn't just a fluke, that every CSM going forwards will be in this kind of mindset. Will be very able to interface with the community. We will be transparent. We will talk to people regularly. We won't, cause massive amounts of drama constantly, and we will communicate. And we won't, leak shit like a fucking sieve.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, I've only done a dozen or so interviews so far. And at least a few have said, I'm running because CSM was so despicably disorganized and, there's so much infighting. And in reality, that was CSM 11, sorry, CSM 10, not CSM 11, which is you guys. You guys came in and kind of cleaned up that reputation. And CCP did too. They changed their leadership and got
Oh no,
more.
yeah, yeah. I can't thank Garden Logibro enough.
Yeah.
Like they have been wonderful coordinators.
How much did Siegel come in and say you guys are important? How much reassuring she do?
I not as much as you'd expect, because honestly, the best thing that you can do to reassure someone their importance is to actually see the impacts you have. And whilst very sadly, a lot of those impacts don't make it past the NDA, there were impacts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll respect NDA.
Yeah.
Your shield that allows you not to answer questions.
I
Okay,
will say
with
that
me.
a good example of it was originally when we were talking to Guard and Logibro before the first summit, they were talking about, we'll probably bring 10 people to the next summit, so four people are going to have to sit out, something like that. And we had a very frank discussion with Seagull and everyone else about that over dinner on Thursday,
How'd
and
that
we
go?
basically it was it
Sorry.
was it was a very it was a very productive discussion, and as a result of it, they decided to bring us all 14 back. And I think to a degree that might have unfortunately led to the reduction in the number of the CSM, because we highlighted how incredibly useful it was to just have all of the CSM in one location. It ensures that there's no factionalism. It ensures that you don't have this kind of, second class CSM member who doesn't come to these summits, who doesn't spend, 15 to 20 hours, every day just immersed in CSM duties.
So you convinced them you got to bring all 14 of us. It's helpful that way, and they did, and it worked. And then they said, okay, next time we're only going to bring 10. Next CSM is only 10.
It wasn't entirely like that, but I think we convinced them of the importance of bringing all the CSM members there.
So it's not an issue of money. It's not that they can't afford four more plane tickets for people to come. So what's going on there?
Honestly, I don't know. I think that's something that, we it was asked to us, is this important? And as a result of that, they came to the number of 10. I know that we did suggest alternate numbers. 11 and 12 were kind of thrown around. We felt that like that was a bit more of a sustainable, not sustainable, um, a bit more of a better number, because it would have given the chance for smaller communities like wormholes and high sec and low sec to have a more significant representation on the council. Obviously, competing with null sec blocks there is very difficult, and that's something that I've talked about before.
Yeah, isn't there a problem with this? With the big alliances having one or two people, if all their people vote correctly for them, that leaves little room for kind of the either the generalists. It seems like more of the politically inclined are going to have a better chance of getting 10 seats, and then the people who would have gotten 11th, 12th, and through 14th were the faction warfare guy or the wormhole guy or the third party developer or the high sec guy, generalist, the industrial guy, those, do you think they're going to have a chance?
Well, those candidates never typically got into the CSM unless they did have a platform. Like that's almost always been the way of how it works because the CSM is so well because it's an election and effectively the best thing you can do for a democratic election where participation is not mandatory is to get your vote out, to be constantly in the public awareness. And we've kind of burnt through a lot of those generalist people with platforms in terms of the CSM. How many more industrial bloggers are there? There used to be a lot of people who would, very willingly talk about what they were doing in the game in high sec and stuff like that. But that whole blogging culture has died out, just as the culture of Eve has changed, and that means that those high sec industrialists now don't have really anyone apart from maybe Steve to rally behind. We have seen new people start to develop though. Roden, Commander A's, that kind of high sec ticket,
Mm.
might give them a route in, and I really do hope that works. I've been a huge supporter of that high sec ticket. It's honestly something that I think is awesome and should have happened, many elections ago.
Yeah, I'm not sure a platform necessarily is like important. What it seems like people don't vote for what they know; they vote for how they feel. Obviously, if you look at the elections we've had in the real world, that's kind of they don't. They can actually vote against their interests, right? Like it's just proven that, like West Coast liberals in the United States will vote themselves some, taxes because they feel like it's the right thing to do to share their wealth or whatever. And then, there's just, anyway, in the real world, there's a lot of different examples of that. And I think the platforms are really a way of connecting with somebody's emotions to say, like, hey, I believe this, and this is what I'm mad about, and this is what I'm happy about, and this is how I play the game. And I think it's a way of saying, if you think like I do, and here's how I think, then you should vote for me, because you should feel some, companionship or kinship with that person.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. And there's also the fact that the CSM, election isn't as visible as it possibly could be. Having to go outside the client to do it is a problem that we raised quite a few times during the CSM term, as we think it really does hamper, kind of the ability for more casual players or players without kind of a greater knowledge of the metagame, I would
Mm-hmm.
say is the best way to put it, um, from having an impact on the election. Because anytime you ask people to look outside of the game, the game client itself, you're going to lose traffic. That's just a nature of the game itself.
Yeah. Well, you've got a great number of issues. It looks like you've taken some time to write out what you think about certain things. So actually won't go over any of that. You can find it there on your thread that was put out there and stuff.
Yeah, I actually had a really interesting conversation with Ashtarothi on my thread in particular. He was claiming that I effectively didn't have a platform. I found that to be a very interesting analysis of my positions.
It's like saying you have no soul.
Yeah,
It's
but
kind
not
of
quite
kind
that.
of offended, huh?
Not offended. I just thought it was an interesting take on it.
Hmm. Did he mean it as a compliment?
Oh, I think he meant it entirely as a compliment. Yeah, I just, um,
Mm-hmm.
it's very it was very weird to have it described like that because to a degree I have last year I did run on a more traditional platform. I ran on a platform of, I am from this area, space, Providence. I have experience with these different types of gameplay, FCing. I want to help ensure that this particular style of gameplay is represented in the CSM,
Mm-hmm.
non-NBSI stuff. So stuff to do with NRDS and NPSI. Um, and this year I've gone away from that, and that I
And
think that
I just like to break these terms out because people assume they're baked in, but NPSI is not purple shoot it. That means everything outside your fleet, just shoot it. It means shoot everything except the guys that are in your fleet. Um, and NRDS,
not red, don't shoot.
not red, don't
So if
shoot.
someone's not shot you before, you don't shoot them.
Right. So it's kind of like defend yourself, but don't go attacking people. What's the last one? Shoot.
NBSI, not blue
Thank you.
shoot it, the traditional way to play.
That's where most people are, and that means if they're not your ally,
Interestingly, less
shoot
common
them.
during the start of EVE Online. Um,
Yeah.
when CVA started, it was actually the norm for alliances to be NIDS, but that
Right.
changed as the game developed and became more populated.
That's an incredible little factoid that people generally were okay with each other, passing through each other's space lanes. And it wasn't until the population got bigger that they became more competitive over the resources. And
And
personalities
also,
came in.
and also when, the smugglers gates were added, that was also a big change to it because you no longer had to be friendly with everyone in your area of space to get to where you needed to go logistically.
So they broke the dependency on being friends. Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool,
Obviously,
man.
there's other things involved there. It's not just as simple as a couple of mechanics changed and then people wanted to kill each other. You know,
Yeah. Well, even if there's some incumbents not running, there's maybe about half of them. This is CSM coming back or trying to come back. But there's a lot less room now. So you guys, if all the incumbents were to come back, there would still be only 3 or 4 seats for the new people.
aren't there only like 4 people? I think we'd actually fill up an entire CSM if all the incumbents got in.
Is that right?
Uh,
Oh, there's more than I thought then. Yeah.
it's like Fafer, Nash, Hyde, Gorski, Kyle. So 5 people who I can think of right off the top of my head who aren't running again. So that
Mm-hmm.
would leave one spot. I don't imagine all incumbents will get in. And actually, I think this is one of the first. This might. I don't think very many incumbents have never not got back in. Sorry, that
Right.
was an incredibly poorly worded
No,
sentence.
no, but they usually say, "Yeah, I'm not going to run."
Yeah, like most incumbents will typically get back in. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very, very rare for an incumbent to attempt to run and fail to achieve the CSM.
Yeah, and
So that would
CS
be a kind of
and CSM
interesting
10, just about everybody said, "I'm not coming back." Maybe those 2 people.
two
Um,
people, Gorski and Steve.
yeah,
Yes.
and 11, it seems like a lot of people are wanting to come back, all but 4.
Yeah.
Mm.
And all but 5. But yeah, and honestly, that's just a testament to how productive of an environment CSM 11 has been. I think like it has been great,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well,
you know,
you're running with the advantage of being an incumbent, but you also seem like a pretty sharp candidate. Even if this were your first run, you would be very sharp compared to some people who are just getting their legs. They want to test the waters, see if they can get in. If not, they may run again later. You have another tier of guys who have been running 3 or 4 times, and they really want to get in, and they're more polished and stuff. But um, you're an incumbent, so you already have the experience of what it's like. The game's basically already been ruined for you, right? Because you can't. There's certain things you're restricted from now.
certain things I'm restricted on, and there's 2 things you don't want to see made in the world, and that's sausages and Eve Online.
That's the other thing, right? You don't want to meet your heroes. You don't.
No, definitely, definitely.
They will
But
disappoint you. Yeah. Well, is there anything we didn't cover that you would want to cover?
sorry, you cut out there for a second.
Is there anything you would want to cover that we haven't covered?
Um, yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to a couple of the other people who are running, if that's okay with you.
Well, hold on a second. Let me think about it. Okay. Go ahead.
I'd like to give a shout out to the judge and Sullen Decimus. Those guys have been, working with me consistently on my, basically on doing communication in CSM 11,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to hope that they would make it on to CSM 11 with me. Of course, my own election is not a foregone conclusion, especially in such a incredibly tight race. Like there are so many good people here. I could easily pick out 12 who I'd want on the CSM. Like I think would make amazing CSMs, and that seems a tragedy to me.
Yeah. It's just getting harder to get in. But those 2 guys would be you're saying thank you, or you're saying that. Well, I guess it's a tacit endorsement, isn't it? Because you're saying they worked hard with you.
Yeah, no, they were brilliant guys.
Yeah. Great, Jin'taan. It's going to be interesting to see how you do. good luck in this election cycle.
Good luck, and thank you very much for running these interviews. It is a valuable service, and I hope it spreads both awareness of the CSM and basically just to make sure that people pay attention to it and find the right candidate for them.
That's right. All right, man. Thanks.
Take care.